You are listening to the 90 Days Later podcast with Anna Charles, episode 93. Welcome to the 90 Days Later podcast, where I show you how to stop over drinking in 90 days without missing out on life. If you're not an alcoholic, but fed up with saying yes to a drink when you mean to say no, you're in the right place. Hi all, and welcome back to the podcast. All right, so I talk a lot about our thinking on this podcast, right? And the importance of being intentional with our thoughts. Well, today I'm talking about a thought that at first glance seems very innocuous and almost innocent, almost sounds very innocent, but which can have huge repercussions. And it is simply this: one more won't hurt. Now, there are various ways that you could see this as well, right? What harm will one more do? Why not another one, right? We have all these various different ways of thinking about it, but I'm going to talk today about one more won't hurt. Now, boy, oh boy, just saying those words, does that bring on memories for me of being in the kitchen drinking while I was cooking. That was really one of the main times when I would drink, right? One more won't hurt, I would say, even though that would delay dinner for everyone. One more won't hurt when I was sitting on the sofa. One more won't hurt when I was out with friends. After all, right, I wasn't driving. One more won't hurt. Even though it would mean a groggy morning, right? It always was kind of the iteration of one more won't hurt for now. Almost put those two words in brackets afterwards. Now, this is so wild because I actually had this exact thought this morning. At 6 minutes past 6 to be precise. Right, it was time for my morning run. I go out every other day, and today was the day. But I didn't want to get up. And as I looked at the clock, I kind of was aware of it, right? My primitive brain wake up to the horror of what I was about to do. I was about to get out of my nice, warm, comfy bed. I was going to get dressed in the lycra, not really my favorite outfit, but there we go. And I was going to go outside, and I didn't want to do it at all, right? My brain was on board with this desire to not do this. One more minute won't hurt, which turned into, right, 10 more minutes won't hurt. One more skipped day won't hurt, right? Not really. You can always go tomorrow. Right? So what I'm talking about today has relevance way beyond drinking. This is such a life skill. So first, I want to say, I think it's important to remember that we have choice always. Everything we do is up to us. There is no order or rule or restriction that says you can't have one more. Right? There's actually really no restriction there. We're grown-up adults with free will. We decide for ourselves. This is so important as it stops us going into sort of rebellion mode, right? You say, I can't have one more. Well, I'll show you. One more won't hurt. Watch this, right? This is the difference between can't versus choose not to. So if you're listening to this and you're saying, well, actually, there are times when one more will hurt, right? I want you to think about how that kind of restriction works out in the moment. Does it help? Is it more likely to have you sitting the next one out? Now, only you can answer that for yourself, but I really think that thrashing ourselves with restriction isn't a great strategy because it's not sustainable in the long term. You might manage this a few times, but you'll be using hefty amounts of willpower, and that's not a recipe for long-term success. But that doesn't mean you have to go along with your brain in the moment when it's saying one more won't hurt, not at all. This doesn't mean that you don't write your drink plans, right? It doesn't mean we look at them with restriction, because remember, whatever you put on your plan is up to you. This is choice. You can have one more, you can have 10 more, just not right now. You can do that tomorrow, right? We have the choice. So I want you to remember that. It's very important. Now, when I think about the words, one more won't hurt, a tactic that really helps me is I'll always associate those words with a particular voice. Right? It's kind of a pleading voice. It's like, one more won't hurt. Right? It's just like my children used to do when they were young and they were trying to get my agreement on something, right, that was a red line, or a Theresa May red line, as I like to call them. Please, Mum, please. Right, one more won't hurt. And whenever I do that, it reminds me that this is my primitive brain at play. It's just trying to get what it wants in the moment by hook or by crook. And sometimes, my friend, just hearing the voice, hearing the words spoken in this way makes all the difference and helps me to, really buck up and see what's going on. Now, when we think about the sort of the factual basis, one more won't hurt. You could argue that one more won't hurt, really, right, if it's really just the one. What does hurt, though, even if it's just the one, is your agreement with the story. That's going to be the thing that's going to hurt you because you are going against you. It's going to be hurting you and your resolve if you continually do this. Because if we agree with one more won't hurt on Monday, what's to stop us agreeing with it on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday? Right? And then it becomes a habit because we're doing repeat action. So I want you to think about that. It's not about the drink. It's not about having the one more that's really the heart of the topic here. It's what you're making it mean in your agreement with you. So if this is something that you come up with a lot, I want you to anticipate the desire to have your brain to say just one more, right? Just expect it. It's going to say one more won't hurt. You know that's going to come, right? Sooner or later, those words are going to come. That thought's going to come. That's for sure. Now, if you're thinking of it in this way, this does two things. First, it stops us resenting ourselves that we're having that thought again. Right? Oh, here it goes again. Why can't I ever learn? Right? It just stops that. We're just going to expect it. Hey, there's the thought. Come on in. Been waiting for you. The second thing this does is it stops us being surprised when we find ourselves in the one more won't hurt scenario. Right? It's just your brain looking for opportunities to quit, right, to give up, or to drink too much, right, out of habit. That's all that's going on here. This is a pre-programmed thought that we have taken action on in the past, so our brain is going to serve it up because every time we've thought it before, we have then delivered the wonderful reward of the wine, right? This is the thought loop that's part of the drinking habit. But we know that to create different results, we need to take different actions. And in order to do that, we don't accept excuses or justifications from our primitive brains. So here's a way to answer this thought. It's something that's always worked for me and works for me still today. It's simple. In fact, it works on every occasion. And it worked this morning at 6:06. I remember there's a reason why I planned what I did. I will remember that when I wrote my drink plan, or when I decided when I go running in the mornings, or even when I decided that I was going to go and buy some chocolate raisins because we'd be going to the pictures, I was taking that action with intention. I then get really curious as to why in that moment I'm so sure that one more won't hurt when just 24 hours previously I was so sure of my plan. So sure enough that I didn't put that extra one on the plan. Right? What's changed in the meantime? Well, what's changed is I was actually faced with following through. So that's the first thing I'll ask myself. Then I remind myself that my plan, the plan I've created for whatever it is in my life, is how I best show up for myself, whether that's in my work, in my exercise, in food, whatever. I plan each work day. I have my list of what I want to accomplish and I block off time in my calendar that I adhere to. I plan based on how I know I function best. So I know at 3:00 in the afternoon, that's my low point typically. So that's when I'm going to do boring admin that doesn't require a lot of brain power, or that's even when I'll go for a walk. Right? What I don't do is I just go and watch Netflix all afternoon because I know I just wouldn't plan that ever. So that gives me a huge clue that if in that moment I just want to go and slob on the sofa, it's my primitive brain at play. Ditto, I'm not going to plan to eat 2 packets of chocolate raisins at the pictures. Never. So when I finish my 1 packet, by the time the adverts are over and the main picture hasn't even started, and my brain suggests that one more packet of sweets won't hurt, and that I still have time to pop out and get another packet, then that's my clue, right? I didn't plan it, so I'm now not acting with intention if I follow through. I'm just going along with the primitive brain. It's not what I wanted. This is a good rule of thumb, I find, right? If it's not something I would have planned to do, I don't do it. It's quick. It's super quick. But if that isn't enough for you, right? If perhaps you're in a scenario where you could argue, yes, maybe I would have planned that, right? We can go into excuse brain. Maybe I would have done that. I might have, it was a very long picture. I might have planned to have the 2 packets of chocolate raisins. I also have a backup line of defense. And it's simply this: I will insert a pause. I will give myself 30 minutes to come back to this decision. And by then the urge has usually passed. Inserting time is a great, great strategy. So far I've talked about how this one more won't hurt thought applies in all aspects of our life. But I do want to talk a little bit here about what we make it mean when it comes to alcohol. Now, as I said at the top of the podcast, this applies to many areas in my life, including getting up to do exercise and, for me at least, eating chocolate raisins. I've got to the point where if I find myself thinking just one more packet of chocolate raisins, I'm able to smile and recognize why I'm thinking that, right? I don't see it as an instruction, and I certainly don't feel any shame about it. I think, well, of course I think that. I really like chocolate raisins. I'm in a picture house, so why not? But then I move on. I don't dwell on it. But when it comes to alcohol, we think if we're thinking this, if we're thinking one more won't hurt, we're thinking we must be broken or hopeless. We're never going to change because we know we want to change our relationship with alcohol. And here we are again, wanting to go against ourselves, wanting to rebel against ourselves, judge, judge, judge. But how does all that judging help? Well, the answer is it doesn't, because we'll likely have one more just to feel better about ourselves, right? So we're thinking one more won't hurt, and then we go into judge mode. Why am I thinking that? And then we feel really bad, and so guess what we do? We reach for the wine because we don't want to feel really bad in that judgmental space. So be aware of that. Be aware of what you're making one more won't hurt mean when it comes to drinking. Judging yourself for having the thoughts you're having does not help. And there's one final point I have to make here, and I've left this to the end on purpose. Whenever I find myself saying one more won't hurt, I ask, no, but what will it hurt? Right? And I always come up with the same answer. I see the implication that's far more important than whether you have the drink or not, whether I eat a second packet of raisins or not, whether I spend 10 more minutes in bed or not. It's this. It hurts your agreement with yourself, your commitment to yourself, your trust in yourself. This is a hugely important factor in changing your relationship with alcohol. I remember being able to make goals and follow through apart from when it came to French Chablis. But when I realized I could also learn to follow through and back myself when it came to alcohol, well, that was the best feeling ever. And I can say without a shadow of doubt that feeling that way about yourself is far more a sweet reward than any dopamine fix you could ever get from wine, or these days that I would get from chocolate raisins. So the next time you find yourself thinking one more won't hurt, pop on this podcast episode, have a quick listen. It's nice and short and sweet this week. You can use this as a tool to help you motor through the day as you want. And if you want more help, if you want to be done with this drinking thing, I can help. This is what I do. Go to 90dayslater.co and click on the book a call button, and we will talk about where you are and where you want to go, and I'll build the exact plan to get you there. Okay, hope to speak with you soon, and otherwise I will see you next week. If you like what you're learning in the podcast and you want to take the work further and achieve total freedom around alcohol, let's talk. I help my clients stop reaching for that first glass of wine the moment 6 p.m. rolls around, and they don't miss out on life. And we do it in 90 days. The effect is permanent. Email me for more information on anna@90dayslater.co. And if you did enjoy the show, I'd really appreciate if you'd leave a rating and review to help others find the 90 Days Later podcast.